Hi and welcome to my channel. I am Fifi Mason, a British introvert who likes to talk about personality, introversion, and how to balance your energy as an introverted business owner or coach. And today I'm going to be reacting to a video called The Dark Side of Being an Introvert. And I'm really not sure where this is going to go. I believe it's going to have some negative things in it, and it could potentially have some positives. I don't know. I mean, the dark side sounds pretty ominous. So just get into it and see, and I'll be reacting as we go along.
If you're asked to picture an introvert, or maybe you're one yourself, you might automatically think of someone who's shy, keeps to themselves, and doesn't share many of their opinions. But even though they might seem docile on the outside, there's a secret dark side to introverts that's not always discussed. Today on Charisma, we're going to look at the 8 dark sides of introverts. Number 1, they're not a team player. It's no secret that introverts prefer time alone to with others. This doesn't only apply to social gatherings though, as it also extends to work or school environments. When it comes to an academic or work situation, introverts generally dislike group projects or working with a team. Instead, they prefer solitary tasks that don't involve a lot of collaboration with others. So, when an introvert finds themselves stuck on a group project, they often end up feeling resentful towards the other group members.
Okay. So the first one is that introverts are not team players, and I have to disagree. I have personally, in the jobs that I've had and at university and college, I've always worked well with other people. I very much prefer, and they did say there was a preference for solitude, very much prefer to do my own thing if I can. But I wouldn't be resentful or kind of show any disinterest or just be rude or anything if I had to work with someone or alongside anyone. At university, I created I created the radio station, and I put on events and brought people together, and community was a big thing for me. So the fact that this is one is, I'm very curious. I mean, it doesn't bode well for the rest. I do think that's a massive generalization, and just kind of saying that all introverts are not team players is just not true.
They might even shut down in a group setting because they find working with a team and trying to voice their opinions to be overwhelming. Additionally, a recent study highlighted in Forbes found that introverts can actually have a negative impact on extroverts when they work together. The study revealed that in group environments, introverts gave their extroverted coworkers less credit and underrated their performance.
Wow, okay. I honestly would have thought it'd be the other way around. I'm curious to see where this study came from, who created it. I would say for anyone who, understated the participation of anyone within a project. Introverts are very much less likely to celebrate that they've done something and shout about the accomplishments that they've achieved, and so they're probably less likely to praise and shout about someone else's accomplishments as well. I mean, I want to read where this study came from and see what they actually did. Again, it's a generalization that introverts are not team players anyway, so.
This could be because they felt less comfortable promoting others than their extroverted counterparts. However, it could also be due to the fact that introverts can develop a deep-seated resentment towards extroverts, as they may find their extroversion to be off-putting. Number 2, they avoid...
I'm just going to say something on that, because they have a deep-seated resentment to extroverts because of their outgoing extroverted personalities. Wow. That is the craziest thing to say. I don't think someone's going to resent someone for being outgoing. If anything, it would be more that they just got to a point where they needed more time to themselves and were getting fed up of being around the group. And it's not directed at extroverts or individual people. It's just the situation and how we as introverts do need more of that downtime and that solitude to function and be happy and healthy. So yeah, okay, let's go.
Pudding. Number 2, they avoid confrontation. Introverts dislike confrontation and conflict. While their extroverted counterparts often enjoy a good debate, introverts prefer not to rock the boat. Instead, they gravitate towards avoidant behaviors. For instance,
Again, I'm not sure if this is introverts, extrovert traits. If you were to say it's a trait, people who are likely to avoid conflict are not necessarily introverts or extroverts. I think it really just depends on how you've learned how to develop those skills. It comes down to assertiveness and confidence skills. I think even an extrovert could be someone who avoids conflict. Definitely.
Number 3, they overthink things. As the name implies, introverts spend a lot of time in their heads. They like to daydream, process something they've learned, or simply think about their day.
Yeah.
However, all this time spent inside of their heads means that introverts have a tendency to overthink. Studies have shown that the reason for this is actually because introverts have more brain activity than extroverts. In other words, they process more information than extroverts do, which can lead them to overanalyzing things. And while the ability to think through a complex idea or process is beneficial, there is a downside to this when it turns into overthinking. This is especially the case if the introvert's thoughts are fixed on mistakes that they made or what they perceive to be their flaws.
Yeah, I do agree with this one. I think we do, and it is not necessarily an introvert-extrovert trait again, but I think introverts have more of a tendency to overthink, and we often overanalyze and maybe spend too long in our own heads thinking about things. We can get into that analysis paralysis. We can get stuck in the creativity and the ideas, and we can overthink, and that can be negative, and it can be focusing too much on overthinking a situation that's happened. There is an element for introverts that we can be more likely to be overthinkers. So yeah.
Research has shown that dwelling on these things can lead to mental health issues and can prevent one's brain from focusing on and enjoying the day-to-day to the fullest. In addition, when introverts overthink, they also end up delaying their decision-making. This can be detrimental when they need to make regular decisions at work or even in a relationship or friendship. It can also make them less able to collaborate with others, as their inability to quickly make decisions can reduce their flexibility.
Yeah, I see where they're coming from. I do think that we need to think about how our thought processing is just the way we are. So we need some of that. We need some time to think things through, but there just has to be a limit to it. Make sure that we take time to be present in the moment and not constantly thinking about things. But our thinking side of us, the side of us that needs time to think and think things through and has that processing, is one of our strengths as well. So it's really finding that balance.
Number 4, they suppress their emotions and then explode. Introverts tend to keep their feelings to themselves. While they might be good at listening to friends or family members and helping them process their own emotions, they rarely reciprocate. They can be so good at keeping their feelings hidden that they come across as cold or unfeeling to those who don't know them. But introverts do feel things, and they often feel them much more deeply than extroverts. This is because many introverts are highly sensitive people, so have a heightened responsiveness to the world around them.
Okay, I get it. I'm not sure that an introvert is going to explode. But I do think because of our tendency to be inward focused, we think about our feelings, we think through our feelings and internalize them, and rather than sharing them with other people. And I have done this a lot in my life. I do keep my feelings to myself a lot more than I probably should. And I do think that, yes, this is something that most introverts are going to struggle with. But yeah, as long as you've got some healthy ways to let out your emotions if you need to, and just making sure that you consider those things, then you should be fine. And I don't think you're going to explode.
However, when they feel so deeply yet don't express their emotions in a healthy way, such as by processing them with a trusted friend or family member, this can result in their feelings becoming overwhelming. Over time, after burying emotion after emotion, an introvert can eventually explode. This can happen over something seemingly small or insignificant. For instance, if an introvert is having a stressful, difficult time at work, but keeps this information to themselves, they might end up releasing all of their pent-up anger and frustration on a loved one. Number 5, people think they're stuck up. In a group of new people or in the midst of a big party, you'll usually notice that introverts are some of the quietest ones there and prefer to keep to themselves. They take a while to open up, and even when they do, they typically don't share too much. The reason for this is that it generally takes a while for an introvert to trust someone, and they don't feel comfortable revealing too much about themselves too soon. To those on the outside, though, this behavior may appear snobby or stuck up.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with this so far. I think we're probably more likely to be the quiet ones in the room. But I think there is an element there where we can learn to have more conversations. I mean, if you're going to a party, if you're going to a networking event, you're going there for a purpose. You shouldn't just be stood around being the quiet one and avoiding people. If you're going to go, you might as well get involved. And I think sometimes we just need to learn to have those initial conversations and how to start conversations. And a great approach is to be curious. I'm very curious about people. I'm very interested in what they're all about. And sometimes when you get someone talking about themselves, which is a lot easier to start off with, especially if they are more outgoing and seem more extroverted, then you get them talking about themselves, and then you can kind of relate in certain ways. You can find things that you connect on and find things that you can talk about that you have in common. And that's just learning that initial skill of starting the conversation and getting things going is very, very beneficial.
People often accuse introverts as acting like they're too good for others, even though their quietness is rarely due to a snobby personality.
Yeah, this is quite a funny thing because, yeah, I think sometimes when there's two sides of it. Some people think if you're quiet and not saying much, you're either shy and lacking confidence, or unhappy and not feeling good or something like that, maybe sick or something. And then the other side is some people just think that you're snobby and rude and cold, and that you just think you're a stuck up person. And I think it's interesting that why we assume those things because of the way we're behaving. I understand it. I suppose it's part of society, is how we are in society, as it's influenced how we think that way. And we kind of see someone who is outgoing, extroverted, who shares things about themselves as they're not a mystery, and someone who is quiet and has there's mystery there, and it means it can mean a number of different things. And very often they'll read into body language as well. People read into more than just what you're saying, not saying. If you're being quiet, they'll look at you and think, oh, that person looks sad, or they'll look at you and think that person just thinks they're too good to talk to me and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think there's more subtle things going on.
Number 6, they're hard on themselves. While we focused a lot on how the dark side of introverts affects those around them, this dark side can also negatively impact introverts themselves. As we mentioned earlier in this video, introverts are prone to rumination and overthinking, both of which can lead to the feelings of unhappiness. But another result of this is that introverts are quite often hard on themselves. If an introvert gave a bad presentation at work, for instance, they might spend days dwelling on it and make themselves feel bad for not doing better. Or if they went on a date that went poorly.
I see where this one is going a little bit. Again, it could be just a human trait. It doesn't have to be introvert, extrovert. We're all hard on ourselves when things don't go the way we want them to go. And maybe from the introvert perspective, the problem is that we spend more time thinking about it and worrying about it. So I get that. I kind of get where this one's going.
Poorly, they might jump to the conclusion that they were the reason it didn't go better. Over time, this tendency to blame themselves or beat themselves up could lead to low self-esteem and diminished confidence. Number 7, they lack identity. A recent study of college students found that introverts have a lower sense of identity than extroverts. Specifically, the study found that introverts lack a sense of personal beliefs, purpose, and goals, at least when compared to their extroverted peers. This might...
I wouldn't say that was true. If there was a study, I will try find it and I'll put it in the description. But if someone is an introvert, are they less likely to have a purpose, goals? I think they'd be more likely, to be honest. I think because we are introspective and think about things, someone who becomes more aware of self-development potentially would have done that work. They're probably more likely to have done that work if they're an introvert, because we enjoy thinking over those things and thinking things through. So I would have to disagree, but I will try and find the study and put it in the description if it does exist.
Might seem ironic, given that introverts' energy is predominantly spent looking inwards. However, just because an introvert spends more time inside their head doesn't necessarily mean that they have a better sense of who they are. In fact, so much time spent in their head can lead them to overthinking and even questioning things like their values and self-image. Another reason introverts may struggle with identity...
I get that point a little bit. I mean, there is thinking about these things, and then there's overthinking these things and doubting yourself and starting to worry about whether you are who you are potentially. I mean, yeah, you could argue that could be true. Let's see what else they
is because, as we mentioned earlier, many introverts are highly sensitive people. These are people who are more finely attuned to the world around them. Many highly sensitive people are also empaths, meaning that they absorb the emotions of those around them. When an introvert feels the emotions of others, they can become confused as to which are...
So highly sensitive people and empaths is very likely, if you are an introvert, that you are also highly sensitive. And that means that you might have more sensitivity to the world around you in terms of sensitivity to light, sensitivity to sounds, sensitivity to foods even. I know for myself, I am very sensitive to caffeine, so I can't drink anything with caffeine, Coke, Coca-Cola, coffee, tea that has caffeine in it, anything like that. Sensitive to the cold, sensitive, like physical things, mental things, like very, very aware of a lot of things. And so, yeah, if you're highly sensitive, if you're an introvert, you're probably more likely to be highly sensitive. There is also a link to empaths as well. Before learning about introversion, I thought I was an empath, and that explained everything, because I felt like being around people, and if they were starting to be emotional and talking about something emotional, I would really feed off that and feel it. And until I learned more about introversion, it made more sense to me. But I still feel like I have that side. I do think that most introverts are also empaths. So yeah, I agree.
Are their own feelings and which belong to someone else. This can lead them to feel unsure as to their true identity. Of course, with anything, this isn't true for everyone. There are absolutely introverts who have identity and purpose, but there are also some who currently don't. Number 8, they have a hard time asking for help. Introverts are known for being independent, and while independence is a valuable tool in certain situations, it can have its downsides as well. One of the biggest downsides of introverts' independence is that they have a hard time asking for help. For instance, if they're struggling with a work or school project, they'll err on the side of pushing through it and trying to figure out on their own instead of asking their supervisor or teacher for assistance. Or, as we already saw when it comes to introverts' emotions, if they're struggling with something in their personal lives, they might keep it to themselves instead of reaching out to others. However,
I completely agree with this one. Yes, I do not really ask people for help. I will struggle through and struggle through and struggle through until I just can't anymore.
by not leaning on others, especially those with more experience, introverts can slow down or restrict their growth and ability to learn. Over time, this can lead them to holding not only themselves back, but negatively impacting those around them. If an introvert is working on their component of a group project, for instance, but can't figure it out and refuses to ask for help, that could end up letting their teammates down by causing errors or delays. Are there struggles that you feel only introverts understand?
Yes. So that was the dark side of being an introvert, and there were some that I agreed with and some that I don't agree with at all. I mean, I feel like we are very good at working in a team, but we do have to consider our introverted nature when it comes to that. I do feel like we can avoid conflict, but I don't think that's necessarily an introvert extrovert thing. I think it's a very human thing. A lot of people, especially women, are less likely to have those assertiveness skills that we need to kind of tackle some of the more difficult conversation situations, the conflicting situations that come up. I think that it is true that we do overthink a lot more because we are inward focused rather than sharing things. We're less likely to share our feelings, and we are less likely to ask for help if we need it, and we will just struggle through. So some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. I would love to know what your thoughts are. Let me know in the comments. If you like this video, then please like and subscribe, and I shall see you next time.